she wasn't home from work. And so I was like, all right, I'll. But most times when I'm using that service, it's because I want to drink. I want to party. Maybe not drink. Maybe some weed. I don't know what it is. But I don't want to be driving under the influence. That's most times when I use it. And I just, like most people, would assume that what I do is what most people do, which is kind of crazy. And so I'll talk to the drivers every now and then. Sometimes I'm in the mood to do it, sometimes I'm not. And they probably hate when we ask them stupid questions like we hate when they ask us stupid questions. I'll say, how long have you been doing this? Or how many rides a day do you do? When is your busiest? And again, the amount of drivers here locally have told me, no, dude, what I do mostly is take old people to the grocery store. What? Because you wouldn't even think of as an old person even using one of those services. I wouldn't have thought of that. And then behind that, they'll tell you, no, a lot of airport rides. A lot of airport rides. People don't want to park at the airport if they're flying out. They just want to be able to get a ride and do that whole thing. I don't know, 51 cents per minute doesn't seem crazy. $1.40 a mile, I guess that's part of their compensation package. This doesn't seem crazy, but Uber and Lyft are telling me it's that they can't incur it, that they can't take it on, that it'll cause rifts in their business model, which of course means profit. Now, I normally defend profit making because that's how employees are hired and retained. People don't understand that. It's like businesses have to turn profits, like they have to. We turn profit into a dirty word in this country, and that was by design. Absolutely. It for sure was, hey, no, we're not your enemy. That's your enemy right there. They're making record profits. That's your enemy right there. And that was by design. We did it. Profits are good. You do, as a corporation, have to figure out, though, like, all right, we're making our profit, and we can still pay this. I think it's a little foolish. Everybody's seen your business model. Everybody's seen how it works. So anybody else that can code can start another company and do this and secure the drivers in. And you know how that's going to work. The new company will give them all the bells and whistles that Uber and Lyft aren't until they can't. And then once they have all their drivers and they realize they can't run it that way, it will turn back into what Uber and Lyft are doing. Think about this in Airbnb terms. Airbnb came out and it was an alternative to hotels because it was cheaper and it was this and you didn't have to do this. Now they want you cleaning the house before you leave. It's more expensive than hotels. Sometimes the people are in the home with you. Or, by the way, you're on camera all of the time because it's my residence and not a hotel. And now people are going back to hotels. They figured it out. It's like, no, there was a reason why hotels were running the way they were running. It's because that's how you have to run in order to make a profit, right? So I know companies are going to drag their heels every last time in order to give people what they're worth, especially these tech companies. They're the best at this. They're the best at pumping money into these old companies are the bad ones, we're the good ones, and yet these are the ones that never want to hire people, they're all trying to go driverless. Literally, Uber was trying to go driverless 15 years ago. They were trying to do that. Google's got the self-driving car. This is all, so like, that's the other end of this. Like, drivers are going to have to be a little careful here because much like you're pressing enter on the menu board at the fast food restaurant before long, they already have it on Cleveland Avenue here. You already do it that way here. So if Canton has it, right? So how long is it before people are riding in driverless Ubers? Oh, people will never do that. They're going to have to, there's no way people would do that. That's what they said about Uber. People had said there's no way people are going to ride in the backseat of somebody else's car. And then Uber figured it out. Yes, they will. If we require that your car is this year or newer, that you have this, that you offer this, and that you offer that. Yes, they will. And we did. We absolutely did. So this is going to be the next conversation on paying a livable wage, but it's just going to lead to the driverless Uber coming to get you.
Right now, you're asking yourself, is he trying to be wrong?
You incinerating that I'm dumb.
The Stansberry Show.
Welcome back to the Stansberry Show. We'll get back into this rideshare drama in Minneapolis here in a moment, but we should let you know, and I'm happy to eat some crow here, as the Browns and star running back Nick Chubb have agreed on a reworked contract for 2024 to lower his base salary of $11.775 million. They do say here, according to Tom Pelissaro and Ian Rappaport, that he will have a chance to earn it back in incentives. Translation, we don't really think he's going to be the Nick Chubb of old, but he's a fan favorite, and nobody was going to offer us any money for him, so let's rework his deal and see if we can get the best out of him this next year. That's how that reads. Now, I did tell you I thought Nick Chubb and maybe Njoku, I just picked names I thought would be big on the open market, would maybe have to go for Deshaun's money, because traditionally that's what's happened in the NFL. The Chiefs didn't really want to move off of Tyreek Hill. He was worth too much money on the open market, more than they thought they were going to be willing to pay. They have Patrick Mahomes. You don't necessarily need Tyreek Hill, as Patrick has proven that. I thought what happened to every other NFL football team before the Cleveland Browns was going to happen. There were a couple of things I did forget there, and this was honestly me not being great at my job, honestly, because I had forgot this one fact. The salary cap for this year goes up over some COVID issues, so they have more money to play with, and sure enough, they just went to Nick and said, bro, you were hurt all last year. So rework this deal, and you can stay. We'll let you earn it in incentives, because we don't think you're going to be able to. So we'll put it in the contract that you can do. That's how that reads. Now, I hope he comes back and balls out. But do you really think that if he was healthy all last year, they beat Houston, and they rely on the running game all year, that he's reworking that deal? Maybe not as much as he did. He's coming off an injury. He's going to have to be all right. Now, I think he's one of the best guys mentally in the league, meaning he doesn't necessarily care about the glitz and the glamour. He just wants to show up, work hard, do his job, and I think that's what makes him a great fit for the Cleveland Browns. I never wanted him to go. I don't want Njoku to go either. I was making it about every other NFL team that's ever done what the Browns did with their quarterback, meaning paying way too much money for a single player. Normally, your roster gets gutted. That wasn't a crazy take. Literally, there were roadmaps for it everywhere, since it's only happened to every NFL team ever. The salary cap went up this year. That was good for them. That was absolutely good for them. Also, they got Deshaun to rework his deal. Now, why was that able to be done? Because he didn't play every game, and he didn't ball out, and he saw Flacco kind of step in without as much rust. There was plenty of rust on Flacco. We just like to look back on that on rose-colored glasses. But I got that one wrong, and I've never been more happy to be wrong. I'll say it until they put me in the ground. I'm perfectly okay being wrong on what my opinion is. It's my job to give you some projection. It's my job to be bold enough to go, this is what I think could happen. And it's also my job to tell you when I got it right and when I get it wrong. I've never been more happy to be wrong. I've never been more happy to be wrong. I'd rather be wrong about what my opinion is than what facts are. Like when people were telling me about, Las Vegas and how they handle their field, and, Cleveland being a smaller market than Vegas when Cleveland is a bigger market than Las Vegas. And because people think it's about the amount of citizens in the city limits, and that's how market size is calculated. But no, it isn't. It's the entire metro area. Don't know what metro area is? Yeah, I know. Maybe that's why you shouldn't text in there telling me how wrong I was about that. But I am more than happy to be wrong about my opinion. I will never shy away from giving you bold opinion. If I came in here and was like, on 99% of things, it wouldn't be worth listening to. Happy to be wrong. Happy to see Nick Chubb on the roster. Hopefully, all of our offensive studs get to stay. That has traditionally not been what's happened to most NFL teams. You appear to have a better GM than a lot of teams in the league right now. He understands the money. We kind of switched. I don't even know if we switched problems. Like, Dorsey was a pretty good evaluator of talent. Yes, not every pick panned out. Nobody's 100% in draft picks. But Dorsey seemed to understand talent. He did not understand finances of contracts at all. Like, he did not get it at all. Andrew Berry seems to work the money a little bit better than some other GMs around the league, and thank God for that. Because if you're going to pay your quarterback this kind of money and guarantee it, you're going to have to go to some other people and be like, yeah, man, sorry, you're not number 4. So I'm going to need you to take a hit. And he had some players this year who had a good reason to be like, all right, man, if I want to stick around and I want to try to win, I'll let you rework this deal a little bit. And thank God for that. So the fan favorite, Nick Chubb, still on the roster and can earn his money back through incentives, which is the team telling you they don't think he's going to be able to do it.
He was the most hated man in America. And then Kanye came along. Thanks a lot, Kanye. The Stansberry Show. on Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansbury Show. The Browns have restructured Nick Chubb's contract for 2024, reducing his salary down. He can earn it back in incentives. I feel like this is what everybody, well, not Nick. Nick probably still wanted the bulk of his money, but this is what everybody wanted, right? Fan favorite, little Batman there. He'll be on the roster next year. I think if healthy, he's still one of the best running backs in the league. Now, he's had a couple of surgeries. A lot of times guys don't come back and look in the same form that they did. We'll keep our fingers crossed there on Nick. Happy to be wrong on that one and have him around. We were talking rideshare drivers because Minneapolis is going to be the new battleground. They're trying to raise driver pay. Uber and Lyft are saying, nah, we ain't with it. We're threatening to pull out of Minneapolis. And there's a new third company. I'm sure there's more than that, but Rides is one of them. WRIDEZ, I believe. And the tech companies love misspelling words. Hey, misinformation. Due to messed up alphabet? Not a problem. I mean, that's not going to screw it. Communicate? No? All right, fine, screw it. And so that's going to be a battle. Ride says they're willing to step in, as they have done already in Texas, over some pull-out of some other companies, rideshare companies and the like. So we'll see what we get here. This new payment plan for rideshare drivers in Minneapolis was supposed to go into effect May 1st. It seems as if everybody's pausing and saying maybe July 1st. Let's let everybody get up to speed and see what we get here. So it begs this question. As we got into the payment and what will happen, and they were trying to do driverless Ubers 15 years ago, so I would imagine that's only going to become more popular as the years go on. Just how often does a rideshare driver crash while working? Never even think about it, right? A lot of times when you get an Uber, it's because you're drunk and you don't want to crash. You think to yourself, there's no way this person's high, they're working. That's a ridiculous thought process. You know how many people are addicted to painkillers? You know how many people are addicted to marijuana? You know how many people are addicted to cocaine? And by the way, that's a company you never see your boss. You don't report to, I mean, right? Like it's your car. Like there's no, like, so people could be literally high on anything and we wouldn't know. So they've done some research here and it was published in the Journal of Safety Research. And it shed some light on it. The study analyzed survey responses. Now, again, this is a small survey here from 277 rideshare drivers. This data was self-reported, and what they found was it's like 1 in 3 rideshare drivers have crashed on the job. Now, more than a few rideshare drivers are listening to me right now as they're taking people back and forth or maybe waiting for their next ride, and I could have more than 3 of them listening, and they're all going to tell me, nuh-uh, I've never crashed, right? Now, again, small data sample here from 277 rideshare drivers who self-reported their crash history and driving behaviors. So it's not necessarily going to be that, yes, any random group of 3 rideshare drivers have crashed, but those odds I don't think are all that great. They say here some drivers are hitting the early morning traffic to get the airport passengers. I think that's what that guy who spends his time in my parking lot early in the morning is doing. Then they spend long hours on the road the rest of the day. Some could start their day in the afternoon and drive into the middle of the night. Either way, it can be a tiresome experience. So they may end up leaning on something to boost some energy in the life they claim. Add in the fact that drivers often respond to their next call in the middle of driving a passenger. I have seen that. They might be making personal calls or texts during a ride. I've seen that. It doesn't happen most times I'm in the back of an Uber, but again, that would be anecdotal, not proof. And it's clear, they say, that there are plenty of distractions to increase the odds of crashing. Apparently, there's another factor at play on why rideshare drivers are crashing as much as they are. And they say it's not the driver, it's not the car, and it's not other drivers. It's you and I. They say the passenger a lot of times is unruly. They may be drunk. I would have to have my hand raised here. Again, I've said more than a couple of times, that's usually the only time I'm using it, is if I want to party. They say ask any Lyft or Uber driver and they'll probably be able to share with you at least one horrible experience with a rider who had too much to drink or was just uncivil in general. Having a rider who appears to be on the verge of vomiting, passing out in the back seat, can be a serious disruption. And this is true. You've driven drunk people home from the bar. You maybe weren't being paid by Uber or Lyft to do it, but you've done it. We've all have done it. You maybe were even a little under the influence yourself while you were doing it. We have all been annoyed by somebody being a little too drunk in the car on the way home. And the drunk person, caution to the wind, I don't care, music turned up loud, put my hands in front of your face, man, and all of this stuff, and next thing you know, you got an accident going. They say this is, of course, made worse by the fact that many rideshare drivers are doing this work as what? Side hustle, second job, meaning they are way more likely to be tired on the road while driving. And again, I would imagine drivers, and I'm thinking truck drivers here, have to hate hearing all of this, right? Wasn't it once upon a time we decided you can only drive certain amount of hours per day as a truck driver over the road because of what can happen? Now, yes, if a semi crashes, we are in serious problems there, right? That can lead to a lot of things. But don't pretend people don't die in single car accidents. They do. Don't pretend people don't die when hatchbacks crash. They do. Absolutely they do. So where are we in that conversation? Of like, well, we'll pay more, but you're only allowed to work so many hours on the clock because nobody can drive safely after, right? Like, where is that conversation going? Now, you got to be careful with that one, drivers. Well, you got to pay me more money so I don't have to drive as much. All that's going to make them do is push the gas pedal down on the driverless car experience, which I don't want. I don't want an electric vehicle as my personal vehicle. I don't. And I don't want driverless cars. It'll probably be fine, but it's just not, that to me feels, that's too cold of an experience. I can't be made to be happy. If I get in the back seat of an Uber or a Lyft, I think to myself, please don't talk to me the whole way to where we're going. Now, there are certain days where I'm like, yeah, let's have a conversation. But there's plenty of times where I'm like, dude, please don't do it. But if you tell me, hey, man, you're not going to have to talk to anybody, but nobody's going to be driving the car, I don't love that either. I can't be made, this is, you know what this is? This is I got to be honest with you, I don't necessarily, they got the driver data and this and that. They know when I ordered the ride, they know this. Yeah. The night the driver, but now he knows where you live. You know how easy it is to write down an address or screenshot it and save it? How many people are like creep you out like in situations where you have to be? By looking at you too much or following you or maybe waiting around after this to make sure we get to talk to you a little bit more after that meeting. Like, you deal with that all the time, women, right? That's one of those things a man doesn't necessarily have to worry about. Now, you have to worry about being assaulted physically, like maybe something like that. That can happen. But I don't necessarily worry about an Uber driver dropping me off and going, I can't wait to see that dude's penis, man. I'm going to circle the house 300 times and eventually kick in the door. Like, it worries me when she does that. I don't necessarily like that. I don't like the idea of other men knowing where she lives. I don't love it. I gotta be honest with you. She doesn't do it a whole lot. She'll do it, obviously, as we all have to do that now, you know, depending on where we're going, what we're doing. But I gotta be honest, that's one of those things. I don't love it when that happens. And that's why a lot of times if we're going to Uber, I'm like, no, back to my house. Let's stay at my house. Like, we'll just do that way. It doesn't matter. I'd rather have him know where I live. I'd rather have him under the impression that you and I live together. I don't want this dude driving. Plus, if you're in the backseat of the car drunk, I'm just going to let a stranger drive you home. Most times, I don't even want my friend driving you home when you're hammered. I'm going to put you in the backseat of a car of some dude, like just some guy. Yeah, man, I don't know if I love that.
Back to the Stansberry Show. Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansberry Show, where we've been talking about rideshare drivers. Minneapolis looks like going to be the new battleground for rideshare driver pay. Probably too low now, should be raised, as most people's payment is too low. Yours, mine, most people. Uber and Lyft kind of threatening to pull out of Minneapolis. A third company, Rides, W-R-I-D-E-Z, has filled in Texas. I think Austin is one of those companies pulled out of there. Like, all right, well, we'll do it. And they say they're ready to head to Minneapolis if need be, which I would assume means they're going to start opening up there. As Uber and Lyft are saying, man, if we start moving to this kind of payment thing, we're not sure we're going to be able to operate. Which all companies are going to say that, and it is true. The more this is true, is what I mean to say, that the more you pay employees, the more likely it is the company's going to try to figure out how to do it with less employees. Like, we know that, right? We know that. We were also talking about the crashing, as they say here in some new research that was released in the Journal of Safety Research. Tells us that 1 in 3 rideshare drivers have crashed on the job. You know, I was kind of talking about that. And I was talking about driver limit, right? Like hour limit. Apparently truck drivers, a lot of you listen, thank you, about 14 hours total on clock, 11 driving hours is what I've been told by a few of you. I hope that you are right about that. And apparently they already do cap rideshare driver hours. I read 5 different articles on this story last night and another 3 this morning. Not one of those mentioned that. I find that interesting. So thanks for that info. Not surprised to hear that, as again, they're keeping track of what their drivers are doing via, you know, the apps. Now, this also happens. An Uber driver will go, hey man, if you don't want to wait when you're trying to get out of here tonight, I'm driving all night, here's my number, just text me and I'll come get you and we'll work out a payment. Right? A lot of them do that. I've had that option plenty of times and I used it once. As I was going to be leaving a concert and I was like, screw it, it's going to take me forever. So I did. I was at Blossom and I texted the guy. I said, hey, look, man, I'm ready to get out of here. I'll meet you right there. And sure enough, we did that. Now, that's not what his company wants him doing, and I'm sure that's not what they want me doing, but sure enough, that happened. I was talking about my being hesitant. I don't love when my better half Ubers or Lyfts. Depends on the situation. Right? She's not necessarily a big drinker, but like, yeah, you go out to dinner with somebody and have 3 glasses of wine, you don't necessarily want to drive, right? And I don't like if I'm not with her, if she Ubers back to her house. The driver knows where she lives. That worries me, you know? If I'm in the car, they may assume, oh, right, well, they live together. Right? We don't, but they may assume that. I don't necessarily love that. I don't think anything may happen the night of, but like now all of a sudden, I mean, what's the screening process of a rideshare driver? Is your car new enough? Are you hungry enough? Meaning passionate enough to try to, you know, put some hours in to go make some money? If you are, then you're hired. I mean, like the screening process isn't going to be, I mean, literally there were PR campaigns to like silence the fact that an Uber driver killed somebody. I think it was Brazil. This was years ago. And they were trying to suppress the story because they were trying to get new users to use the product. I mean, there have been stories like this. This came in off my text line. Jody says, you have every right to be concerned, Dan. It's already happened more than a few times. I'm sure as hell wouldn't let my girlfriend do it. I know that for a fact. Yeah, it makes me a little worried by it. Now, a woman, Jerica, has texted in as well, 330-450-7625, and you can too. And she said, I mean, taxi drivers have been doing this job for years, and I don't see ride shares any different than a taxi, honestly. Well, in a lot of fashions, they're not. But I think a lot of women will tell you, we don't really live in a strong cab city. Even Cleveland was never really that big of a cab city. It just wasn't, right? Plenty of women who live in metropolitan cities like that will tell you, oh, no. I hated taking cabs. I would never do it alone. I didn't want to do it alone. I would only do it with friends or in a group or if I had a man with me. Now, it's obviously not all women, as cabs were a thing and people were making their living by driving and other people were making their living being driven to where they were going to, you know, make their living. So I see your point there, but one of the reasons why Uber got popular was the way they advertised it, as in, we know who the driver is and you're connected with them. We know whose car you were in at all times. And part of the reason that was a selling point is because people felt uncomfortable being in the backseat of cabs because they didn't know who that person was. And you're driving people to their homes. I just worry about it as on theft. I mean, sexual assault, yes, but theft too. God, this person lives in a nice house and they didn't tip me the money. I'm going to tell so-and-so and they're going to rob your house, right? Like, there's a lot going on. Now, is that what's most likely going to happen when you Uber home? No. Am I trying to tell people never to take an Uber or Lyft? No, obviously I do it all the time. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there are concerns about it. You know, and I would worry about that. There was once upon a time a woman was starting a rideshare company for women. All the drivers were going to be women, and I believe she was only going to be willing to drive women around. I can quickly here go to this joke. Well, what is a woman. And if I identify, do you have to let me in the car? And there's a good question. If I identify, do you have to let me in the car? Because I think you do, right? Like, I think you probably do. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons you're not hearing about that company anymore. I think another one might be is there is a way to sell it as sexist. There is a way to sell it as that, although I do think it was probably birthed, the idea anyway, out of protecting one another. I've seen plenty of dudes get assaulted in an Uber or Lyft, rideshare, I guess we could call it. We don't have to make it about the company. I've seen plenty of those videos out there. I've seen plenty of drivers attacked. That feels, movies always look like, they always make it look cool. And you know why? Because a movie's about 3 people, and they never show you the rest in the goddamn gutter because the 3 people who can afford to live in this universe are all enjoying it. You ever notice that? All those movies, there's 10 people alive in there, but there's 8 billion people on the planet, man. So, like, we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to be doing that. And I don't necessarily love that idea. I've been told this, and I don't know that this is true. I looked quickly, and I'm not yet able to confirm this, but I will look again. But I've been told by a few of you at 330-450-7625 that if a rideshare driver gets into an accident while working, they're actually not made, but it's been suggested to them you're better off telling people you were just driving on your own time, to reduce the PR for the company, to be able to continue to work for the company, that apparently there is nod, nod, wink, wink. We can't make this an edict, but we'll suggest it strongly enough. I have not been able to verify that. I looked a couple of times for that. I don't know that that's true, but that sounds like corporate America to me. Like, that absolutely sounds like, again, those tech companies, man, they do a very good job of pointing to all these other retailers who have been, the companies in this country your entire life. They're the bad ones. We're the good ones. And meanwhile, dude, they're more evil than anybody. Like, literally more evil than anybody. Their entire thing is, we don't need you. We just need the coders. And we're trusting them more than the old school retailers? No thanks, man. Not me.
We would have him drug tested, but why waste the money? The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9. And this rideshare driver thing is messy, man. Minneapolis was looking to raise the rate of payment for rideshare drivers, and I'm going to guess it was too low. They're trying to get it, I think, to 51 cents a minute, or $1.40 a mile, with a minimum of $5, meaning you could not, as the company, give the driver any less than $5 for the ride. I can't imagine a whole lot of rides would be that, but okay. Now, their end of it could be less than that. That's fair. And so they're looking to raise that floor to at least $5. We were talking about this and talking about accidents, as 1 in 3 had self-reported that they had been in an accident while working. And I said, a lot of people coming out of the woodwork to tell me, they're actually motivated or pressured sometimes to deny what they were doing while driving. And apparently it's not about the companies themselves, Uber and Lyft. It's about the insurance company dropping the driver. And if they find out you got into an accident while working, that sometimes they will drop you for said thing. This came in off my text line. I don't have this person's name. I'll write back sometimes asking, the insurance company is going to drop it. Then I would rather drive your food to, and I think it is a pretty decent side, but I would rather drive your food to you than have you in my car. That's just a personal. I think we're going to see some major changes to this industry. I do. And I'm saying in this particular, my girl at the time was from Cleveland, and she was staying for and they drive me down there, drop me off. I didn't know that. I was like, I didn't know there you're going to be able to get me home. Sure enough, we ended up having to pay a bartender to drive us home, that whole thing, and that was a little bit of a mess. So it just goes to show you how far those companies have come. And 10 years is a long time, but it's a pretty short time, on the long line of the universe. And just look how far it's come since then. I mean, the idea of the food delivery wasn't even on people's minds. And you got to give Uber, you got to give those companies a little credit, and they figured out what it is that we're looking for, what it is we're going to. I'm sure I will.